So in today's video, we're going to be lining two different crochet bags. We're going to line this really cute star bag that I have. It's got a little bit of a boxed edge on it, and then we're going to line this granny square tote that I made. I think I made this last year, and I've been meaning to do a lining for it since then. So today is the day. So we're going to do this one second. So I'm just going to put that one out of the way. So the first thing I do is finish, obviously, my bag. And so figuring out the math on how to line this bag is going to be relatively easy. You just have to do a little addition. So I measured my bag. It measures at about 12 by 12 square. My side panels are 3 inches. So for each side of my lining, it's going to be 12 inches plus 1.5 on this side and 1.5 on this side, and then I added another 1/2 inch on both sides for my seam allowance. So I added 2 inches and 2 inches to the width of my bag. So my finished width for this is 12 inches plus 2 on this side and 2 on this side, so that's a total of 16 inches wide. My finished height is going to be 12 inches. I added an extra inch on the top, so that makes it 13. That's just going to be our seam that we're going to just fold down, and that's going to give us a little wiggle room as well. And then I also added 3 inches for the base of our bag. So that's a total of 29 inches. So I cut one piece that's 16 inches wide by 29 inches tall. And that piece is right here. And so I've already got it cut. This is my width. And this is my length. It's just folded. And then something that's going to be really easy, and I haven't done this in a tutorial so far, but I wanted to show you for these little crochet bags. I thought it was the perfect way to do the lining. We have the boxed bottom here on the end of our bag. So what I did was I folded my fabric in half, just like this. I measured up 1.5 inches from this side and 1.5 inches from this side, and I pressed it. So to press it, I'm pressing up here and then down here. So I've got this little boxed bottom fold. We're going to sew right along both sides using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and we're going to sew all the way down to the end, and then it's going to make automatically this little boxed bottom for us. It's going to be really fast and easy. So let's go ahead and take this to the machine and sew that. Okay, so here is our sewn piece. This is so fun. Now we just need to take a look at this. We're gonna flip it right side out just really quick so you can see the magic of the boxed bottom by doing it this way. So it's a lot of fun. You've got this cute little, it makes this fold up the side right there, which is totally fine for these crochet bags. And it's also just really easy way to do it. So there we go. We have our little boxed bottom. Now we actually want this to flip back inside out. I just wanted to show you what it's gonna look like. So here's what it's looking like. This is wrong side out. We're gonna take that and place it inside of our bag. We're just going to make sure everything fits okay. Now, because crochet is stretchy, if it's a little bit too big, you can go back and just do a wider seam allowance. Just whatever you need to do to make it fit inside your bag. And I'm going to line up the side edge of my bag here with the side seam just to see if everything's okay. And I just kind of stick my arms in there and just make sure everything is nice and straight. And then when I come out here at the top, I can figure out how much extra I have. And I have given myself a little bit of extra down here so that I can alter that. So I'm actually going to fold my edge over about, is that 1.5 inches? So I have about 1.5 inches of leeway here, which is great. Now I can trim that off, or honestly, I can just press this in 1.5 inches. Like this, and I think I'm going to go ahead and just do that because it's not going to matter. You're not going to see that edge on the inside of your bag. So now I'm going to take my lining out just to make my life a little easier. I'm actually going to press these open and then over like that. Going to press that seam open on both sides so that it lies a little bit nicer inside the bag. And by the way, you can do the boxes on the bottom the same as I normally do. I just thought this would be a fun way to show you for these little crochet bags. So here we have our little boxed lining and we're ready to go. And we just need to add it to our bag. So again, I'm going to take our bag and just go ahead and put our lining down inside. We can measure and adjust all along the way here. And now what it's going to look like is you're going to have that lining just right along this edge, but you don't want it going all the way to the edge. You want your crochet peeking out around the top all the way around. And I like to go ahead and line up these side seams. And I'm just going to clip those first, just like when I'm doing sewn bags. All right, so the next thing that I like to do is to flip this inside out now, because it's going to be a little bit easier if your fabric is running along your feed dogs on your sewing machine rather than your yarn. Your yarn can get kind of pushed and pulled by that. So I'm just going to go ahead now and turn my bag inside out. So now we can take this over to our machine and sew around this top edge. And like I said, I'm just going to make sure that my crochet is sticking out along the top so that we're not seeing that lining when our bag is turned right side out. So I am going to backstitch at my stop and start. I like to start on a side because it's less conspicuous if you mess up or anything like that. And we're just going to sew all the way around this bag, just making sure that we're hitting our lining. So that's basically my method for adding lining to a square or rectangular based crochet bag. Let's take a look at how we can add lining to a little more complicated shape. So this one is a little bit of an awkward shape, and so it's not quite as straightforward as the rectangle shaped bag. So what I did for this one is I just laid it out as flat as I could on 2 layers of fabric, just like this, and then I traced around the outside of the edge with about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now my bag got a little bit wonky here, and I probably need to come in a little bit here on this edge, and maybe even come in a little bit here on this edge. And now we're going to trim those out. So let me move my pressing board. I'm going to go ahead and just trim with my rotary trimmer. All right, and now we can remove our bag, and this is going to be our template. So now we're going to sew all the way around these edges using a 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. It's always better if your lining's just slightly smaller than your actual bag. But because we've got these weird angles up here at the top, I'm actually going to press those down before I sew my edges in. I think it's going to work a little bit better. And I'm going to go ahead and just press this edge back. Now this top edge, I'm going to turn it sideways so I can reach better, needs to come in also, but it can't because we've got this. So we're just going to go ahead and trim down right there, just like that, so that we can press that in. And now we need to repeat that on this side of the bag, but we want right sides to be touching. I'm actually going to flip it over. And now I'm just going to leave these pins in here just to kind of hold that in place. I'm going to line these back up along this edge. And since this is such a wonky shape, I am going to bring out my pins. This is a little flower magnetic pin bowl by Lori Holt. I got it at Fat Quarter Shop. People always ask me because it's so cute. And I'm just going to pin down this so that these fabrics aren't shifting too much on me. All right, now I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew down these edges using 1/2 inch seam allowance. So here's my bag. I've sewn all the way around these bottom edges and the top is still open. And now we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with our other bag, which is place this inside our bag and just check the fit. Now because this bag, like I said, is, you know, a little bit differently shaped, the fit might be a little bit off and you can just adjust it. You can sew, you know, a little bit more of a seam allowance if you want, just to make it fit a little bit more snug. And I'm just putting that bottom edge right down in here. And then hopefully, if we did everything okay, these edges of our lining should line right up with our bag. I apologize, my son is doing all his chores today, so he's mowing. And anyways, now we're going to go ahead and I'm just gonna pin this in place right along here. And your side seam should measure up or match up right with your side of your bag. And then we're going to do what we did last time, which is flip it right side out because it's better to have your fabric running on your feed dogs than your yarn. So I'm going to flip this whole thing right side out, take it to my machine, and just sew all the way around this top edge and just make sure that you have your crochet sticking out the top edge so that you can see that and you don't see your lining from the outside. So here's what it looks like, and I just always like to double check to make sure that I didn't miss any of my lining, just because we're kind of sewing, you know, from the back side there. The lining from the inside looks great. And now you can just push that lining down inside of there. It fits surprisingly well, I would say. Here's what it looks like on the inside. We've got a nice lined bag, and that's going to really help give you a lot of extra support for your bag so that when you're putting things in here, A, they don't fall out the little holes, and also they aren't going to be stretching out your bag, because this is a cotton thread or yarn that I used, and so this can get kind of stretchy. Now, if you want, you can also run some fabric, a little fabric strip up the handles as well, and that'll keep those handles from stretching too much. I don't think I'm going to do that because I think it's going to be fine just like this, but here is our second lined bag that's of an awkward shape, so I wanted to show you how to do both, something that was a little bit more measurable and then something that was just a little bit more random shaped. And here we go. Here's our two lined bags. We've got the square one that has this side panel. I wanted to make sure to show you how to do that because you do have to do a little bit of math on this one, but I think that turned out great. And then of course, here's our sort of awkward shaped bag that we were able to just create a custom lining for. And that's really gonna help your bags. It's gonna give them extra support. And then if you put anything, you know, in here, crafting supplies and whatnot, they won't fall out through the holes in your little granny squares. So that's gonna be it for today's bag lining tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to thumbs up and subscribe. That way I know to keep making these fun videos for you. Thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next time. And now my son is mowing. Oy, oy, oy.